My name is Dr. Samantha Russak. I am the Curator of Research and Welfare here at Tanganyika Wildlife Park.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to another episode from Tanganyika Wildlife Park of Rossifari. So yeah, we are back for our second time at Tanganyika. Now, you may remember these episodes were all recorded actually on the same day as part of my multi-day experience at Tanganyika, but I am breaking them up a little bit. And this episode is the episode that I was the most excited to record when I headed out that way. I specifically knew about Dr. Samantha Russak, and I was excited to get to talk to Sam and get to know her a little bit. And that's the part that happened that makes me the happiest. We have some mutual friends. You'll hear all about this in the interview. And it was one of those things where, like, I wanted to get to know the person. And then also the episode and all that is cool too. And it turns out that Sam does not disappoint either as a human, as a friend, or, as a podcast guest, which is pretty exciting. So we're going to get to that interview in just a second. But, a lot of people have asked me very specifically about my experience at Tanganyika. And one of the big things they asked is that they know that Tanganyika is such an experiential zoo. And we talked about that in the first episode that I put out a little bit. But Sam's title and the work that she does, to me, is literally what makes this zoo work when it's set up the way it does. I mean, the whole staff there is incredible. Ownership is incredible. Leadership is incredible. Obviously all of that. But it's like Sam's position in a lot of ways is what can make me feel good about everything going on at that zoo if I hadn't been there to experience it all and see how great it was myself. So I'm excited to share Sam with you as a person, like I said, and her position, and to bring y'all back to Tanganyika and my incredible time there. But yeah, so we're going to get right to it real quick. Make sure that you don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of these interview episodes on Tuesdays or any Friday Zoo News episodes. Make sure you're following along on the socials at Rossifari. And if you want to support the pod, you can do so for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. With all of that said, here it is, my interview with Dr. Samantha Russak of Tanganyika Wildlife Park. Enjoy. In
good old Goddard, Kansas.
Good old Goddard, Kansas. Whoo-wee. All right, yeah. This place is pretty cool. This park, pretty big fan. Mm-hmm. And you are the person that I have been the most excited to talk to, and not just because our good friend Danny Poirier Larson said I had to speak to you at some point, but because I think more than anything, your role here is what makes this park okay. What makes a park that is so experiential and so you're going to be hands-on with animals or in the same space as animals, what makes that okay and makes that not a roadside zoo type vibe. And so I would love to really dive into what you're doing and just tell me about your job here, especially with a focus on kind of that side of it.
Yeah, of course. Wow, that's a lot of pressure on my job.
Absolutely. Darn straight.
No, but it's great. And I'm biased, but I agree. So basically, I've worked at a couple different facilities, was introduced to the ZAA world a while ago, and met Matt Fouts. And he started talking to me about what I wanted to do, what my background was. He got really excited that I was wanting to focus on research and welfare. And, he pitched to me, it was right before COVID, and he's like, we got to get you to Tanganyika. We would love to do that, share our story, but make sure we're doing things the right way. And so he said, I don't know if it's in our budget to have that position right now, but we'll get you over. And then, of course, COVID happened. So things were put on pause for a little bit. Once that kind of settled down, reinitiated conversation with him. I came out to visit and was just blown away. Like you said, there's, you don't realize what Kansas holds. And it's just a great facility. They were doing amazing things. And so, he said, again, we're going to work up to the research. Like, we're going to start you in more of an administrative assistant role. You're going to help us with our record keeping. You'll help our chief of care at the time with whatever she needs, vet care, paperwork assistance, checking in on the keepers, animals, enrichment program, anything. It's kind of a jack of all trades. And we will get you to that research position. And so I've held him to that promise, and he's done well with that. So my role right now, since I've been here, we have a much better defined welfare program, which I'm constantly monitoring and evaluating. We have a much better defined enrichment program, which I'm really proud of. So not to say they weren't doing enrichment before, but, that's more standardized, more documented. Now that I've taken over that program, Lindley Schmidt has worked really hard since she's been here on redefining the training program and what we do with our animal training and experiences. I took that over for a little bit. Now we kind of both work on that together. So that's come a long way. And then the research part of it, I'm actually working with other ZAA facilities. We're doing a big cross-facility-wide study right now to look at the impact that these encounters and experiences and direct interactions between visitors and the animals have on their welfare. And so it's something that I had been wanting to do that type of project here since I started 4 years ago. And so it kind of gave me a good excuse to start it here. And I have the really awesome opportunity to lead it on behalf of ZAA as well. So working with other facilities, getting them to set that up. And then I'll have the fun task of, at the end of the summer, getting all the data, analyzing it, figuring out what it all means, and presenting it at the next annual meeting. And hopefully, fingers crossed, there'll be a paper out of it too.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So where is the next annual for you guys? Do you know?
Next annual is in San Antonio.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beginning of
fun.
October, I believe.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
And so I know you're not supposed to do this in the scientific world, but I don't care. I'm interviewing you now. So what do you expect to see? And I know that you're going to go into it, of course, scientifically and not be biased, but also you're a thinking person. You know what you're going to see.
Yeah. Well, so, one of the things we pride ourselves here on at Tanganyika specifically, but across facilities throughout ZA as well, is the experiences that we offer. We do make sure that it's choice-based for the animals to participate. We're not forcing them to do something. We're monitoring them to make sure there's no stress or signs of aggression or discomfort. And so I think, we all have these stories or anecdotes, or the keepers, monitor animal behavior, but maybe it's not always documented. And so we sort of have this general feeling that the experiences are either neutral or positive even for the welfare, but we don't have the data. And so that's where this project comes from. So I expect that that's what we'll find, is that we'll see it has a neutral or even positive effect for the animals. Don't want to, get ahead of myself. We'll see what the results actually show. But that's the general kind of consensus, as we develop new experiences and try them out, if we get those signs that it's not working for the animal, it's not in the animal's best interest, usually those experiences then don't continue, correct? Right. So, I expect to find that those won't show up in the data because we've already addressed them and handled them and decided that for one reason or another, they were just not good experiences.
Makes sense. Yeah. So what kind of data do you collect, or will you be collecting for this?
Yeah, good question. So because we are working across facilities, and that means different animal collections, different level of expertise in terms of staff, different time availability, we tried to make it as simple as possible. And so we're really just looking for, during an experience or encounter, do we see any positive behaviors, which right now we're just focusing on 2. So do we see play, or do we see any like seeking or curiosity behaviors? And that might be participating in some sort of training demo or training behavior. We have 2 more negative behaviors. So is there any aggression, or do we see any fear or avoidance happening? And then 2 neutral behaviors. So rest. Are they just having a moment where they're totally kind of just doing their normal thing? Or even self-maintenance. So grooming, scratching. I watched our Patagonian Maras the other day, and one was taking a dust bath in the middle of the experience, which was great because that's something they wouldn't do if they weren't relaxed. And so very basic, six behaviors, 6 options throughout the encounter, and the start of it, the middle of it, the end of it. We're not worried about duration right now. We're not worried about frequency. Just do we see it or do we not? And then ultimately, when we look at that, are we seeing that the positive or neutral behaviors outnumber the negative behaviors? Now, if, we do see a trend that there is a lot of negative behaviors happening, that's just going to just initiate a discussion. Is it, maybe the individual is not a good ambassador? Is it the species that doesn't lend itself to being an ambassador? Is it just the way the encounter or experience is set up? But, we would not ignore the data for sure, but have those discussions and see what improvements we can make. I've been trying to tell facilities who may not be as experienced or comfortable with this type of research, like, if we find that doesn't mean you're doing something bad or wrong. We just want to look into it more and talk about it.
Right. No, that makes total sense. And I mean, obviously, if the focus is on animal welfare, then and there are plenty. The thing about it is to me, is that there are plenty of experiences that you can do.
Yes.
And so, if you find out that the rhinos secretly hate hanging out with us, and spoiler alert, I've hung out with your rhinos.
I was say, that would
they
be weird.
don't. But if you do find that out, okay, so you do giraffe and you do the 8,700 other ones that are offered here.
Exactly.
And that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that is important. I think this is the kind of thing that the anti-zoo crowd in particular, but even just the average zoo fan doesn't realize is happening, and you see so many people who, even come to zoos and then are like, oh, I feel bad for the animals. And it's like, well, actually, we're doing a lot of research and we know that they're doing great. And I think that's really important. What got you here? Talk to me about your education and your early career.
I kind of stumbled into the zoo world not in a traditional way, I would say. Typical story in the sense of when I was little, loved animals, knew I wanted to do something with animals. Got really into just animal behavior, like curious about why animals did the things they did, how they moved, what they ate, what was going on in their brains. And so did my undergrad degree in zoology at Miami University in Ohio, and went there because I was really excited that they had a zoology program instead of a biology program. Turned out the name was more of a carryover from them being such an old university. It was still more like a bio program for pre-med students, but that's okay. It worked out fantastically because while I was there, I met with Drs. McGrew and Dr. Marchant, who both were working in the field studying wild chimpanzee behavior. And so they started getting me more into primate behavior, and the idea of field work and really focusing on that group of animals. So I started taking courses with them and ended up adding a second major in anthropology.
Nice.
And so graduated with that. While I was working on my undergrad degrees, like I said, really got into primate behavior. I was like, okay, this is going to be my path. I'm going to stay in academia, do the graduate school route, postdoc, teaching, all of that. So started applying to grad schools, knew I wanted to do primate focus, but also I'm like, there's so many other animals. So really got into the community ecology aspect of things. So how different types of animals share space and interact with each other, either directly or indirectly. And with that in mind, came up with a project proposal to look at chimpanzee community ecology. Coming from the anthropology viewpoint, there was a little bit of human evolution in there. So using chimpanzees as models for our early ancestors. So I was looking at chimps that lived in really dry areas, and basically sent that proposal out to a number of different grad school programs to see if any of their advisors wanted to take me on. And it came down between Arizona State and SUNY Stony Brook in New York. And I think I would have been in a great position either way. But who ended up being my PhD advisor at Arizona State, Dr. Kay Reed, reached out to me personally and said, I read your proposal. I love it. Like, you need to come to Arizona and I will get you funding and I will do whatever I needed to do to get you out here.
Nice.
So ended up at Arizona. It was kind of a combined master's PhD program. So the master's was more initial coursework and background, and then like a qualitative exam, but no actual master's thesis. And then, jumped right into the PhD program to get that going, and reached out to see what sites were available where I could do my research. I actually did a pilot study in Uganda.
Nice.
At Simliki for a couple months. And it was great. They wasn't quite the right fit for my project though. So I ended up doing my PhD work in Tanzania, in the Isa Valley. Was there for a year, living in a tent.
Nice.
No
That's
running
cool.
water.
Oh, wow.
Just a little bit of electricity from solar power. When I was there wasn't like cell signal or anything. We've come a long way since then. So they do get some cell service and email service at the field site now. But yeah, it was great. Got a lot of good research. Found that the chimps there, even in a dry area, are acting like chimps pretty much anywhere you expect to find them. And it was kind of the baboons in the area that were shifting their diet and what they were doing in the area to kind of accommodate being in the same space, which was really interesting. And came back to the States with all of that data, started putting it together, writing my dissertation, and went, I need a way to de-stress. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, in between writing. So I started volunteering at Wildlife World Zoo in Arizona.
I love Wildlife World Zoo. I have a great relationship with them.
Great facility. So that was sort of my downtime, my stress-free job, so to speak, unpaid job.
Well, let's pause for a second. So what did you do at Wildlife World?
What did I do there?
Yeah.
Started off as a volunteer, worked with the keepers there. I helped mostly with the primate and carnivore teams.
Okay.
And fell in love with the facility. It's a great place. Lots of different animals. Staff there are great. And, Mickey Olson, he's one of the tried and true greats of the field. So it was great getting to know him more and work with him. And the more I spent time there, the more it reminded me how much as much as I enjoyed teaching and especially doing the research and fieldwork, I really loved that day-to-day interaction with the animals.
Right.
And that doesn't mean, I was touching animals every day by any means or like really up in their space, but just getting to watch them, be around them, caring for them, knowing that what I was doing on a day-to-day basis impacted how they were living their lives and how I could contribute to that. So by the time I was ready to defend my dissertation, I had decided, okay, plans are going to change a little bit. I'm going to defend because I put in all this work. I'm not going to stop now. But instead of continuing on to the postdoc route and teaching route, that I would shift to the zoo world. And that was kind of an interesting transition because at that point, I had some volunteer experience before at shelters, some wildlife sanctuaries, but it was kind of a month or two here over the summer in between school kind of thing. So not a lot of experience there. And so when I was applying for positions, because there weren't any open keeper positions at Wildlife World at the time, I would get, you're too underqualified to be a zookeeper. You don't have enough zoo experience, but you're overqualified education-wise.
Right.
Like, why would you have a PhD now? Why would you want to be just a zookeeper? And, that's offensive to the zookeepers.
Yeah.
And I knew that at the time, but even after now, all my years in the field, like even more so looking back, I was like, how dare they say that?
Yeah,
right?
seriously.
Zookeepers work their butts off to care for the animals. So it did take a little while before I found a position. But ZA community is such a tight-knit, small community. Mickey helped me out, and he reached out to other facilities and was like, I have this great candidate. She's a hard worker. Ignore her PhD for now, but that'll come in handy because, she's really smart, has this background. He gave me such great references. And the question was like, well, why aren't you hiring her? And he's like, I don't have a spot for her. Right. And so got in touch with the Brewer family at Southwick Zoo.
Yes, we love them.
In Massachusetts. And actually that kind of worked out because my older brother and his family live out in Massachusetts.
Nice.
Not far from Southwick. So it was kind of a nice excuse to get closer to family again. And I went out and visited and just interviewed for like an education keeper position, met with Betsy Brewer, and she was like, oh, we can use you better than that. Let's utilize all that schooling you just went through.
Right.
And so she actually created a director of education position for me.
Nice.
And so I was there for a number of years. The connection with Danny,
of course,
love Danny. And she's done such amazing things with the bird program over there. Yeah. So I was there for a number of years. And then, like I said, started getting more involved with ZAA in general and that community. Met, Matt and Jim, and started having those kinds of discussions. And he, convinced me to come to Kansas out of all places.
Oh, Kansas.
So, but yeah, it's nice that it's kind of circled back around where, I've had such great zookeeping experiences, and now it's circled back around to doing more research, doing more education, but still very much involved with, I see people that from Wildlife World Zoo at the conferences and keep in touch with them. Same with people at Southwick Zoo. So it's really nice. So if you had asked me like 10 years ago if I'd be here in Kansas doing what I'm doing, probably would have said you're crazy. But it's all seemed to work out.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah. And I love just both of those facilities so much. So Southwick's, obviously, Danny and I have been friends since near the start of the podcast. She was one of my first guests, and I've had her on repeatedly. Yeah. She is my most frequent guest. And people ask me, actually, the funniest thing is, we're going to talk about this when I interview her next, but people ship Danny and I. We are both happily married, and we know that, and my listeners know that, but there is a small group of people that have said that, like, we should be dating. We should be. Amazing. And I was like, we're not fictional characters, guys. This isn't like the Hunger Games or whatever where you can do that. We're real people. And we're just really good friends. But we are, like, she married Zoe and I. She was our officiant.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it was incredible, as you would imagine. She weirdly talked about birds. I know. Shocking. Never talks about birds. But and then the relationship with Wildlife World, not only have I been out there multiple times, but I've gone out and done an internship there where I spent a week with their sea lion team working training and stuff. And I'm actually doing another one of those in about a month. Awesome. And I'm really excited. They're just an incredible team out there. So it's so cool that that's like your path. Yeah. And then, I have learned so much at both of those facilities. And I just think that's awesome. I love that. So, what would you say, before we get back to here, what were your favorite animals to work with at Wildlife World?
That's such a tough question. Even when we get back to here, asking for my favorite animal.
Oh, I know. It
changes day to day, maybe hour to hour sometimes. I had the really fortunate opportunity. Like I said, I worked mostly with the primates and carnivores there. So when I was there, I got to help the keepers work with we had some really unique personalities of tigers there that I got to help work with. And I remember one of the young ones there, Orion, I think they just posted about him. He's like 10 or 11 now, which is so crazy. It makes me feel old, which I know, but that's okay.
Oh, stop.
But just so like, checking in and seeing those stories there. I got to see, we got a pair of hyenas when I was a keeper there. We got them when they were 6 months old. And so now, seeing posts about them or hearing stories about them that they've gone on, they were really fun to work with. I remember there was a brown tufted capuchin named Alfalfa, that he would kind of clap his hands with you.
That's so cute.
At his exhibit. He was really fun. So many favorites. It's hard to pick one.
That's fair. And then how about at Southwick's?
Oh, Southwick's, same thing. So Southwick's, I had more involvement with a lot of our ambassador animals, as you can imagine.
So did you work for Earth or did you work for the zoo officially?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, fair. Yes. It's all the same thing.
It's pretty much the same thing. Yeah. So pretty much, I was director of education, technically through Southwick Zoo, but oversaw Earth and the ambassador department.
I do think real quick, just as a side note, Earth is a great name, like it's a great acronym, but it's also really funny because you have like when I interviewed Betsy for the podcast, she's like, so I founded Earth, which is just an amazing sentence. And you're like, I oversaw Earth. And it's like, okay, ego.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I oversaw Earth for a few years. It's great. Yeah. It's kind of, it's hard sometimes to distinguish the two.
Yeah.
Because they're very much integrated and tied together, which is great. So I worked a lot with the ambassador animals, and one of my favorites there, and he was a fan favorite with the public too, was Pickles, our African crested porcupine ambassador. I don't think knew he was a porcupine. I feel like he thought he was a dog because he would crawl into your lap for snuggles.
That's amazing.
He was great. He was one of my favorites. We had some very colorful parrot ambassadors as well that may have learned a few bad words here and there over the years. So you had to be really careful around them. Again, just so many animals with unique personalities that were really fun to work with and learn about them and experience them over the years.
That's very cool. Now, since we're talking about Danny a little bit, and training is such a big thing, did you guys overlap at all? I mean, how did you guys get to know each other?
Yeah, we did. She was already working there when I started, but we actually worked very closely together as her overseeing the bird department and the presentations and the shows and the training that they do. And so we work together quite a bit on, her training brain is amazing.
Yes.
Love her training brain and problem solving. And so, working with her to problem solve some of the Earth, the education animal ambassador training issues that we were having, working with her to help, make presentations both at Earth and the bird department better and for the animals, for the public and all of that. So even helped her feel like I shadowed and then helped unofficial intern in the bird department every now and then, clean some cages, things like that. So it was great working with her. I was really, really sad. I tried to get her to come with me, but she has a family and cute little ones, and
most importantly, Russell Crowe.
I mean, he could have come too. We would have made space for him.
Russell is my favorite bird.
Yeah,
Russell is amazing. We've spent lots of time together. So that's so cool. I really like. I just it seems like more and more the people that are really good in this community are finding each other and connecting. And it makes me really happy to see that.
Yeah.
All right, give me 1 second. This is the time that I mentioned.
Yeah,
give me just 1 second, just chill.
Yeah, of course.
Hello, Danny. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I lied to Dr. Sam and said that I was going to make a call to my son, I believe. But in fact, I wanted to connect you two.
Hi, Danny.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Perfect. How are you doing?
Good. Guess what?
What?
We just had our very first fly off, and it was Russell, and I literally just secured him maybe 3 minutes ago.
Oh my goodness, that's perfect.
We were literally just talking about how much we love Russell. Literally.
What a crazy time to call me.
Where did he go?
Oh my God, he went so high above the arena. He was circling. He clearly was just navigating up and up and up and up. He was circling. We were calling him, and then he went up the hill. Last I had eyes on him, he was headed towards the deli, and then we got a call that he landed on the maze.
Oh, no.
And I just need to get back to doing cardio.
Yeah, you think having 2 kiddos is hard, and then you remember that you have Russell Crowe.
Right, and it's just a different ballgame.
Well, so yeah.
I wanted to say happy birthday.
Yes, this was Danny realized it was your birthday today, and so we wanted to set up a birthday surprise.
Oh my God, you guys are amazing. That's so awesome. Thank you.
I think it's so funny that John had an interview scheduled with you on your birthday of all days.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, our marketing person reached out to coordinate everything and was like, yeah, you know, this guy, John Rossi, is coming. He has this podcast. I'm like, yeah, I've heard about it. And he's like, he said he has to interview you because of some connection, some Danny person, you know. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, the 24th, does that work? I'm like, yeah, it's my birthday, but sure. But no, I was planning on working today anyway. And it's a wonderful birthday present to share with both of you.
Yay. So Danny, I know you have to go soon because children, but is there anything that you want to ask Sam or have brought up on the podcast?
Oh my gosh. Anything that I want to ask Sam? I mean, John, how long have I been telling you that you need to interview Sam?
Long time.
A long time. Like I told you that before Sam even left Southwick's, and then I was like, you got to get to Tanganyika. I was like, Sam, Lindley, like, you got to talk to these people, but like specifically you, Sam. So I just know that you're going to have like everything covered. But what do I want to ask? What I want you to ask? Oh, you're really putting me on the spot here.
I always put you on the spot. It's what we do.
This is what you do.
I was just telling Sam about how people ship us and how weird it is.
Yeah.
It is so weird. Well,
I mean, come on, I could do so much better. No.
Oh.
Okay, no, I have the perfect question.
Okay.
Oh, you little a-hole.
She just got up a little slow.
Just processed at you. No, you can't do better. And her name is Zoe Rossi, and she's your wife. So
Exactly.
There we go. I want to know what you miss about Southwick's the most. And don't say me, because we all know that's what you want to say.
Her face lit up before you said that she couldn't say you.
Ooh, good question. Talk about putting people on the spot. Whew. I mean, of course, I miss you and all of the keepers and the staff there, the animals. It was great to see, you know, all the changes that were made, just anytime things improve and progress. So like the changes we made at Earth and the new exhibits and the new animals and the new staff that would come and learn things and all the stuff you did with the bird program and are still doing. Like I look forward to seeing your Instagram posts and Facebook posts all the time. I'm so sad that I missed out on the whole Alexi process.
My God. Alexi is so much.
He's the cutest.
So much. Yeah.
But so, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, just all of it. Miss all of Southwick's.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
well,
I'm so glad that you guys got to connect and that you're chatting. And I think about you all the time, Sam. I miss you so much.
Aww,
but I love to see you thriving. And I'm so happy you're doing so well at Tanganyika. And I'm just really happy for you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, kiddo, we're going to get going and do the rest of our interview, but I will see you at the end of May.
Okay, sounds good.
Yay. Goodbye,
Bye,
friend.
Bye.
Bye.
Surprise.
That was amazing. Love it.
I love Danny so much.
Sneaky, but that was very cool.
Yeah. So,
yeah, she's great.
Yeah, just a good human. Very cool. So that I had been working up to that and trying to time it out so it didn't have to be awkward. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm really proud of how I timed that, to the minute, talking about Southwick's and then dropping that in.
Yeah, that
party. There's no editing there.
That fit pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was fun, but back to Tanganyika. What are some of your favorite animals here?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, tough question. So I, working with overseeing welfare and research, that kind of means I get to do a little bit with all of the animals across all of the park. So I don't have that kind of day-to-day necessarily connection with a lot of the animals, but I still get to see a lot of them. And so that's really cool. I do also help in the nursery. So any of the animals that we hand raise, which happens to be a lot of our cats, we can talk more about why that is, if you want. So getting to help raise them and then see them become like real animals and do their thing. And, we're like, yay, we didn't mess them up. We didn't break them, it is always great. And,
right.
and that connection continues. But yeah, I mean, again, love all the animals here for one reason or another, different reasons. And it's really hard too with all the experiences that we offer. So, that really does also highlight their personalities and how much they love to interact with people, whether that's their keepers or the public. And it just makes you love them that much more. That's why we do the experiences. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to pick favorites. I think it's really cool that we have some unique animals here that I've never worked with before. So I had never worked with okapi before coming here. So
nice.
That's really cool. I had never really worked with snow leopards before. So I worked with some other big cats, cheetahs, and tigers. But the snow leopards and clouded leopards here are some of my favorites. And then even, just the primates, we have red-faced spider monkeys. I think we're only one of 2 facilities that have them. So that kind of feeds my primate,
right.
my primate interests. Just they're all fun. Having one of the largest herds of giraffe.
Yep.
Just watching those dynamics and participating in those breeding programs and all of that. It's been really fun.
That's awesome. I love that. When you mentioned the hand rearing a lot of big cats, that's definitely something I'd love to hear more about. Yeah.
So I wouldn't quite say controversial.
Oh, I'd say controversial.
But there's definitely different opinions about it. Some facilities hand rear as much as possible. Some facilities are like absolutely not. Unless it's like a medical emergency. We kind of walk the line, and it's in between, and it's very species dependent.
Okay.
We do hand rear a lot of our cats, and that's because we have found that it does increase their chance of survival, and that also it creates a less anxious, stressed cat that we know is going to be continuing to live in human care its entire life, right? So, it would be a different situation if these were animals that we were, for some reason, putting back out into their native habitat, which is a whole other conversation because that's really hard to do with a lot of animals right now. Habitats don't exist.
Yes, very real.
But knowing that these animals are going to have to be, used to having people in their space and providing with them to make it, the least stress environment possible. We found that hand rearing them and getting them used to people early on really helps with their comfort. And then, like I said, the mortality rate, most animals in general, but especially cats, they have really high mortality rates in their native habitats. It's a little bit better in human care. And then it's even better when we can hand rear them. So we usually leave our cats with mom for about a week, as long as everything's going well with mom. Some mothers are better than others. Right. So some are inattentive almost the second they give birth, and we need to step in to make sure that those cubs will survive. Others are really good for the first week. That gives them a little bit of time to get that initial colostrum and nutrition from mom, which is really important for their development. And then we'll bring them up to our nursery so that we can keep an even better eye on them, attend to any medical issues that they might need, really closely monitor their nutritional intake. And we chart everything, document it so we can keep a really good eye on how they're growing and developing. And then, start socializing them, like I said, get them used to people. And we've had really great success with, like I said, clouded leopards, snow leopards. Our cheetahs, we did something different last year. We did co-rearing, which is kind of the compromise in between, right? So moms were raising their litters, but we took time to spend with the cubs every day. We did kick mom out for a little bit just for safety reasons. Cheetah moms can be a little protective of their babies, even though they kind of knew us as their keepers, or probably more just like food providers. But we spent time with the cubs so that they, again, could get used to us and we could get hands on them and do exams and make sure they were growing properly. And so it resulted, you can tell when they got older, you could tell the cheetahs that were fully hand-reared in the past and their personalities and how they approached people and how they acted around people, versus the co-reared ones. Versus we do have some adult cheetahs here that came from other facilities that were completely parent-reared. Right. And so you kind of see the spectrum of how they react to keepers, even keepers, that they see every day and are more used to than a stranger. And you can see the various levels. So, it's, again, choosing to hand rear, there's many reasons that go into it. There are some species where, like most of our primate species, we are hands off unless we absolutely have to remove for a medical reason because mom is ill or the baby is ill. They just don't do well when they're raised by people. But cats seem to do very well. We've had to step in and help raise a few of our hoofstock species as well. So we had a giraffe calf born last July who wasn't getting enough milk from mom, and then ended up mom was just kind of ignoring him completely. And so we had to separate him so that we could bottle raise him. Make sure he was getting enough nutrition. And that was an interesting endeavor. I'm happy to say he is doing fine. He's been back with the giraffe herd for a while now. He's at the point where he's not quite fully weaned, but he's eating solids and we're down to a half bottle a day. And he gets very excited for that bottle still. And as you can imagine, there's, difficulties that come with bottle feeding a giraffe. That is, I'm not very tall. I'm, 5'1", so already at a height disadvantage. Lots of step stools involved. Fair.
I feel like you're 5'1" if you're in particularly tall shoes, but
yes,
no judgment.
That's completely fair. I like to say I'm 5'1" on a good day.
Fair.
Yeah. But yeah, so we by no means hand raise everything here. Right. That's not, so, that's not good for all species. And we weigh the benefits and all of the reasons ahead of time before we make those decisions.
Makes sense to me. That's cool. Yeah. And I know in some cases, I know with cloudies in particular that the both SSP and AMP recommend it.
Yes. Yeah. So cloudies in particular, they've come a long way. And actually our founder, Jim Fouts, was very integral in figuring out the breeding program for clouded leopards in human care. He doesn't always get the credit because, we're not as fancy as, Nashville Zoo or the AZA facilities. But I
knew you would say Nashville because it's they're also so known for cloudies.
Smithsonian, National Zoo is a big part of it too. And they, obviously I don't want to discredit the work
of course.
But, all of them working together realized that there were a couple problems with the breeding program for cloudids. One, there's a big, huge difference in size between adult males and adult females. And so when you're introducing solitary cats just for breeding, there can be a lot of aggression. And just by the nature of that size difference, a lot of females were being killed, unfortunately, in the process. They also figured out, cloudids tend to be a little bit one of those higher anxiety stressed cat species. And so being able to be in a more secluded area or having more cover, not necessarily being out in front on exhibit, is better for breeding. And so kind of all those things together. And then also once they finally got them to actually breed and reproduce, found out they might not be the best moms. So by hand rearing those animals, like I said, increases their survival. And you're absolutely correct. If you look at the breeding plan recommendations for SSP for clouded leopards, it recommends that all facilities hand rear clouded leopards.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So what is it like when you get to go back with the little baby? Because I got to see it feeding through the glass the other day. And I don't think I've ever been more jealous of another human being. I want to go back there. But yes. But,
yeah, we have a little one up in the nursery right now. It's great. I'm not gonna lie, they are very cute, adorable. The heart feels are all there. But there's some downsides to it. We don't do middle of the night feeds unless they're not doing well. But we do like a 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock PM feed. So that means coming back to the park in the dark, which sometimes is a little intimidating. You hear noises around, you're like, oh boy, it'll be fine. So, sleep schedule, not quite as bad as having like a newborn or an infant at home, but, put in the extra work hours for sure. The anxiety of just, you're responsible for this little thing's life, and making sure that they're eating enough, that they're swallowing and not aspirating that milk through their nose, because sometimes they just do that, which is really not fun. The really fun part when they're little until they learn to go to the bathroom on their own is you stimulate them like moms would do. Right. So, taking a paper towel and rubbing their butts and dealing with all of that part. That's usually when people are watching through the window, they'll watch for the bottle feeding. And then when that part starts happening, they're like, oh, time to walk away.
See, for me, that's the part that I know is when you zoom in on the face, because they will, as they do the peeing or pooping, they will kind of freeze. Yes. Usually like in a very contented way. And so I'm getting really cute face pics. While if I zoomed out, it would be like, everyone would be like, ew.
Yeah. Not everybody's favorite part. And then it's just great. Like I mentioned earlier, getting to see them as they grow and hit all those milestones. Our little one in the nursery right now is just starting. He still moves around a little bit like a drunken toddler. Just figured out how his legs work. But he's starting to play wrestle with the stuffed animals we give him. And so, we call it practicing murder. But watching him, turn into a big cat, right? Like they play and wrestle and that's how they develop their skills. Not that he'll need hunting skills necessarily, because we'll provide for him. But it's really cool to see when they continue to develop and hit all of those goals and milestones that you're hoping they hit. So, definitely perks to it.
Nice. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Also, now I know that somewhere between 9 and 10, I can just sneak up there and make a noise and scare the heck out of whoever's there tonight.
Oh my God. You don't want to know. Yeah, it's not me. So go ahead. You don't want to know how many times I've been up there and, occasionally, Jim and his wife will walk around the park. Why not? It's their park. Yeah. But yeah, just all of a sudden turning and seeing a face in the window when you're not expecting to see anybody there. It can be, the heart goes.
Yeah, you telling me this is bad. This should have been a thing I was told after I left. The temptation is strong to go mess with people.
Oops. Well. Sorry to whoever has the night feed tonight.
Is there a conservation organization you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah. We work with a lot of fantastic organizations. So again, it's hard to pick just one, but some of my favorites that we work with that I think are really important. We work with Dyer Island Conservation Trust for our African penguins. Also the Eden Reforestation Project kind of covers a lot of species because they work with reforestation. And they're probably one of my favorites, because of their wide reaching, it impacts a lot of species.
Where are they doing their work?
So they do some work in Madagascar, so that helps lemurs. And I believe they also do some work, in other countries like the South American rainforest and things like that. So, really, there's so many good organizations out there. Another really fun one that we work with is the Cheetah Conservation Fund. We've had them come out here and do presentations and, we do cheetah breeding here. So there's that direct connection. And we open it up for our guests to come and listen to the presentations. And then they can actually oh, I see a cheetah. That cool. Like now I know what you're doing in the wild. And,
No, yeah,
again, it's hard to pick one.
No, of course. Yeah.
We work with so many great organizations. There's a lot of people out there doing a lot of great work, which is very inspirational and very much needed right now. So
absolutely. Very cool. And then it is time. It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I mean, so working in the nursery, I have one comes to mind because I feel like I have PTSD from it. But there was a point in time where we had 3 jaguar cubs at the same time. They were from the same litter. And so when we first bring them up, they're usually small enough that they're in an incubator. And then they graduate to what you saw our Cloudy and now is like a little wire dog crate to give them a little bit more space. And then as they get bigger, they graduate to one of our stalls. And so they were in the stall and, you know, they're not like your cats at home. They don't have a litter box that they go in one place. And so they would just poop and then step in it. And we call it painting. They paint their walls, they paint. So that's kind of a daily occurrence, is knowing that you're going to have to clean up a mess every morning, which is usually fine. This particular morning, there was quite a good size mess. And so I pulled all of them out and put them in a crate so that I could clean the stall. Cleaned the stall, went to go take them out of the crate. At least one of them had pooped in the crate. And keep in mind that there's 3 cats in this crate at this point. And so it seemed like they pooped and rolled and like wrestled in there. I don't know. So they were all covered. The crate was all covered. And so now I had the task of trying to get one out at a time to hold them over the sink to clean them off before, because if I just put them in the stall that I had just cleaned, that would have ruined it. So that was like a really smelly, just awful, there was no way for me not to be covered in it by grabbing them and moving them around. So traumatic to say the least. And they thought it was like they were just having the time of their lives, playing with each other, playing with me. So that was really fun. I also remember a good story from Wildlife World, actually. If any of the keepers I worked with are listening, they might sound familiar to them. But we had a baby tapir that was in their nursery that I also got to help out there with a little bit, which was fun. But he had a crate in there that he would sleep in, but he chose to use that as his bathroom as well. And this is early on when I was still an intern. And so, I was an intern. So of course I had the task of cleaning the poop out of the crate. And being newer to that experience, brain wasn't working, and I chose to crawl into the crate to clean it. And the keeper came and was like, you can take the crate apart. So I was in the crate, face, inches away from this lovely poop pile, cleaning it up. And then only found out after that there probably was an easier, better way to do that. So lessons learned.
You're a PhD, huh?
Yeah, the PhD doesn't always come in handy. It's not for common sense things. So, so definitely, I'm sure there are tons of more stories that I've either blacked out the experiences or not, but yeah, poop is fairly common.
Indeed. Yeah. So. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Yay. So there you have it, folks. Dr. Samantha Russak from Tanganyika Wildlife Park, absolutely bringing the heat. Loved that interview so much. And as I mentioned, loved all of my time at Tanganyika. So make sure that, you give them a chance and head on out there if you get the opportunity. Good old Goddard, Kansas, where everyone wants to go. But I'll tell you what, if you look into what Tanganyika has, then you actually will want to go. So highly recommend that you make that trip if you can. I would like to say thank you to the whole team there for being awesome, and also to my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, also here for stickers, and Kevin Williams. And yeah, I think that's really it. We'll see you on Friday for Zoo News. But until then, remember, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.